All right, let's just jump right in. So, you're planning a huge event. Maybe it's a wedding, a big birthday bash, whatever it is. You've got this massive checklist. And when you get to that line item, event insurance, where does your mind go first? Probably to one of those giant household names you always see, right? And for so many of us, that's going to be State Farm.
And honestly, why wouldn't it be? That makes total sense. You've probably got your car insurance with them, maybe your home insurance too. It feels like the path of least resistance. Just pull up the website, get a quote, check it off the list, and get back to the fun stuff like cake tasting. But here's where things get a little tricky. So here's the deal. You can click around their website for hours, but you're probably just going to hit a brick wall. The research we're looking at shows that it looks like State Farm doesn't actually have a way for you to buy an event policy online. And that's kind of the first big surprise here. That easy one-click thing you were hoping for, it's just not there. So where does that leave you? Well, it means we need to change our whole approach. This whole thing isn't really about State Farm. It's about making sure you get the right kind of protection for your special day, no matter who it's from. So the question we should be asking isn't, can I buy from them? It's, what do I really need in a policy to be covered? Okay, so instead of getting lost on a bunch of different websites, let's create a game plan. I'm going to give you a super simple 3-step checklist. This is going to empower you to make a really smart decision no matter who you're looking at. First up, you've got to dig out that contract from your venue. Seriously, this is step 1, and it is non-negotiable. See what they require. Second, you're going to compare the actual coverage and, of course, the price. And third, and this is a big one, you need to understand these things called endorsements. If you can nail these 3 things, you are golden.
Now, I know those words sound super intimidating. Waiver of subrogation. What even is that? But trust me, it's way simpler than it sounds. A waiver of subrogation basically just means your insurance company promises not to sue the venue if something goes wrong. That's it. And primary and non-contributory. That just means your policy has to be the first in line to pay a claim before the venue's own insurance ever kicks in. The key takeaway here is that a lot of venues demand this stuff, so you absolutely have to know if it's in your contract.
All right, so now that we have our battle plan, that 3-step checklist, let's actually apply it and see who wins. When you run the numbers and look at over a dozen different insurers, a couple of names really float to the top for 2025. And what's cool is that it makes the decision really, really simple. It's like a fork in the road. If your venue just has basic requirements, no fancy endorsements, the analysis points straight to GatherGuard as the best bet. But if your contract does mention things like that waiver of subrogation, then your best path is specialinsurance.com. See? Simple.
Okay, let's talk money, because that's what we all want to know, right? Look at these numbers. GatherGuard, it's starting at just $75. Specialinsurance.com, the one that can handle all those tricky endorsements, starts around $160. Then you've got a big brand name like Travelers, starting at $325. Whoa! And part of that is because they're bundling in cancellation coverage that, frankly, you might not even need. It's just a perfect illustration of why the biggest name isn't always the best deal. And this brings us to a really, really important lesson here about going with the big, famous brands. It's totally natural to think they're the safest bet. But when it comes to something specific like event insurance, the data tells a very different story.
I mean, just look at the final report card. The numbers don't lie. Specialinsurance.com gets a 4.75 out of 5. GatherGuard gets a 4.5. Both are solid A's. And then you look at some of these household names like Travelers and K&K. They got a 1 out of 5. A 1. It is just a huge wake-up call to really look past the commercials and the logos.
Okay, so as you go out and start Googling on your own, I've got to give you a little insider tip. You have to be super careful about where you get your advice, because believe it or not every review site out there is being straight with you.
The research we're pulling from here actually talks about something it calls the Forbes Advisor Scheme. And the basic idea is that some of these massive publications, you know the ones, they use their powerful brand name to get to the top of Google's search results. But then their best of lists are sometimes filled with companies that are paying them a commission. So are they really the best, or are they just the ones that pay? And this is exactly why finding truly independent, unbiased analysis is so, so important.
All right, so after all of that, how do you actually walk away with the perfect policy for you? We've kind of busted the myth about just defaulting to the biggest brand. We've got our 3-step checklist, and we've seen who the analysis says comes out on top. Let's make it super clear. Look, it really just boils down to one simple question. What does your venue need? The analysis makes it a pretty straightforward choice. If your venue's needs are basic, GatherGuard is your most affordable solid option.
If that contract mentions those specific endorsements, then specialinsurance.com is the one designed for that. But the absolute golden rule, the number one thing you have to do first, is read that venue contract. That's your roadmap.
So I'll leave you with this. You are totally equipped to handle this now. You're practically an expert. So my question to you is, what's the very first thing you're going to look for in your venue's paperwork tonight? Are you checking the liability limit? Or are you going to be a pro and scan for those key phrases like waiver of subrogation? Finding that answer, that's your first real step to getting total peace of mind for your big day.